welcome to the fourth episode of Random Respawn. I'm Joshua Chagani.
And I am Marshall Behringer, slightly ill today.
And this is the show where we talk about gaming news, gaming things, and gaming stuff.
Because we are so cool like that.
We pretend to be. And so, as we have done with the previous three episodes, we will continue it with this episode, and we will talk about the games that we have been playing. Marshall, how about you go first?
I was about to say, this is something that we're always going to do, Josh. You don't have to keep reminding everyone about that.
Well, you know, the first-time listeners,
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
It was,
Josh, what are you playing?
All right, well, I guess that defeats the purpose of you going first, but I haven't really played anything.
You always go first. None of this nonsense.
All right, that's true. No, I haven't played anything this week. Maybe a little bit of Ni no Kuni, but other than that, it's mostly been me getting back into my own house. I'm back in my apartment, which is phenomenal. I forgot how nice it is. So I'm back in my place. I went to Chicago, so I couldn't play this weekend because I was in Chicago with my little brother. And although I will say Ni no Kuni, I have a theme for their names. And all of the familiars that I catch, I've decided to name them after Pokemon that they look like.
Nice.
So I've got, a Zubat, a Vileplume, and just a plethora of Pokemon Ni no Kuni familiars. And it actually really helps me remember who's who, because I couldn't remember which ones look like which, especially when the name is like some like Gagapi or, I don't know, something weird. But when you play the game, if you name them after Pokemon characters, it helps a lot.
Oh, I bet.
Although I will say the first three that I have, actually the first four familiars that I have, I named them respectively Smitty, Werbin, Yangerman, and then Jensen. And that is, it's actually a call to a SpongeBob episode where Squidward gives SpongeBob a hat that says number 1, and he's like, "Who was number 1, Squidward?" And he's like, Schmitty. Schmitty what? Werbin. Werbin? Jaegerman Johnson. Schmitty Werbin Jaegerman Johnson. He was number 1. And so...
Oh, man. I remember that episode, too. Talk about old school.
My team is number 1.
All right, hold on. Before I say anything, that's not old school. Who am I kidding? That is from the 2000s. 2000s do not count as old school. The 90s and back is old school. Is that all? That's all you've been playing? Yeah. Besides that,
I did go.
Nothing new.
I did play another game of Dungeons and Dragons back at the comic book shop. I went last week expecting for them to, I wanted them. I was hoping to start a new season with them just to see if I really wanted to kind of continue with it, and they were a week behind, so I had to play like the very last dungeon with them, which was kind of. It stunk for me because all of their characters they had for weeks and they have built them up and stuff like that. And I get there and they're like, "Well, you can be this pixie named Apple Blossom." And I was like, "Great.
No.
I'll be this pixie."
You should have walked out right then and there and been like, "Sorry guys, this is not for me."
Apple Blossom. And that is I spent that evening playing a 9-inch pixie named Apple Blossom. Although I did do some killing, but I will go back next week.
You did some killing as a 9-inch pixie.
I did.
Wow.
I did.
That's a quite incredible feat. How'd you do that?
I don't. Well, everyone there was really awesome, which is why I'm going to go back again. And when they start new, I'll see if it's a more enjoyable experience rather than being tacked on at the very end and being handed a 9-inch pixie named Apple Blossom. So we will. So yeah, like I said, the guys there were pretty groovy. So I'm going to go back and check it out. And if I'm not really into it, come the new season, I may just call it quits on that type of game.
Understandable.
What about you, buddy? What games have you been playing? What have you been playing?
Oh man, it's been kind of a lull this week. I've been doing a lot of filming for school lately, and I don't know. Been getting back into XCOM again recently. Been starting a new game on classic Iron Man because apparently I don't have enough anger and sorrow into my life, so I figured let's up the ante and then rage quit a bunch of times.
Go ahead and explain to everyone why classic Iron Man will make you rage quit.
I don't want to because it just brings back so many terrible memories. Okay, so for those who don't know, XCOM is a turn-based strategy game from Firaxis, the people who do Civilization. They're a cool bunch of dudes. And XCOM's about you are XCOM, a secret governmental organization dedicated to stopping the alien threat that is slowly taking over the Earth. And the hard part about the game is you start off on just with the shittiest dudes who can't aim for shit and the shittiest weapons who can't shoot for shit. And against these aliens who have magical fucking plasma weapons and mind control and just the most amazing accuracy known to man. And the problem is every time you get someone killed in a fight, you lose them for good. So that super awesome lieutenant that you've been ranking up since the beginning of the fucking game, ooh, sorry, he got a random crit off from a muton. He's dead. And the problem with Iron Man is usually if you're playing normally, like if you fuck up royally, you're like, no, fuck that noise. I'm going to restart it. And you go back to the last checkpoint. Iron Man mode, it saves every single thing you do. So if you take a turn and you fuck up and you rage quit and then you load back in, it loads in at that exact moment where you died, or at least one of your dudes died. And that's what I've been doing. I've been getting my ass kicked because I've forgotten how to play this game, and I've gotten up to Thin Men, and they're the second enemy type that you usually run into. And they're really not that bad in terms of health. They only have 4 health points, and usually your weapons can get them in one good hit. It's sometimes 2, but usually 1 good hit. The problem is these fuckers move so goddamn fast, and they have the accuracy of a fucking sniper from like 2 feet away, and just I hate them so much. They kill everybody. It was bad enough that the round beforehand, I lost my sergeant, who was the best one of my group, who was about to level up after the end of that fight, but he got killed in the process of saving 2 fucking people, because he was a medic as well. But then the next round, because everyone from that last mission was gravely wounded, I had to use nothing but rookies, and they all got fucking murdered. Nothing but thin men as far as the eye can see, and just... it's hard, Josh. It's really hard.
Yeah, no,
I don't like it.
That's a fun game. I really enjoyed it. I haven't played it yet.
No, it's not. It is full of rage and anger.
It's a good game. I think one of the reasons for my lull on this side is that in setting up the Let's Play, I have at this point all the parts ordered, and they're all on their way to me, and they should be here by Friday. So I've kind of been waiting off on starting a new game until I got the parts that I needed in order to start uploading stuff.
You're going to be doing stuff on your own? Oh, yeah. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be starting our own Let's Plays on our channel of Random Respawn at youtube.com/Random Respawn. So go check that out.
That's right. We alluded to it slightly last episode, but we have just shot our first episode or series of episodes. We played Portal 2, and we'll get those to you as soon as we figure out how to send 5 gig files to each other. And that'll be...
I sound A, sick, B, I don't have my good mic on me during those episodes, and C, Josh, for some stupid reason, his fraps did not record, so you get the wonderful perspective of me during that entire those first 6 episodes.
Marshall.
But hopefully the next ones we do, we'll have both the cameras ready to go,
and we'll have the kinks worked out. I guess. Would you?
It's all your fault.
Would you want to replay those levels again?
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
You've gone too far.
Just Marshall's perspective.
Well, at least it's entertaining on my end.
Yeah.
Because at least I tab so that way you can see in the bottom right hand corner sometimes your point of view for comedic effect, I guess.
Yeah. No.
When I'm attacking you with your laser.
The only reason I started tabbing Marshall's view was to see when he was going to be hitting me with the laser and knocking.
We're going to spoil everything, even though it's mostly just us trolling each other the entire time. But yeah, we've got that coming up, and other games that I'm playing, I don't know. I'm getting Injustice real soon. That comes out today, which is, this is the day that we're recording this on April 16th. So who knows when we're going to get this bad boy out. Hopefully we'll get this out in the next day or two for y'all. But yeah, Injustice came out today, and apparently my brother got it for me for my birthday, and it's on the way in the mail. So I can't wait. It's been a while since I've had a good fighting game, since the last Mortal Kombat. But I don't play it anymore because everyone online plays fucking Reptile, and he's a douchebag.
I haven't had that issue, actually. I was more concerned with people playing as Smoke, because to me, Smoke seems a little bit cheaper than Reptile.
From what I mean, I just tried playing last week just to see what the online community was like, and most people that I played against were really, really fucking good, with at least well over 1,000 matches played, which...
Wow.
My God. But then also they played as Reptile because from what I can tell, his moveset is very good for juggling, and so you can get a lot of good combos in with him, and it's just... it's a pain in the ass.
Well, there's a move that Jax can do where it's not technically a strung-together combo, but he can get you in a corner, and you can't escape it unless you use a breaker. So...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it counts as like a 3-hit thing, but by the time you stand up, and if it's timed good enough by the person playing as Jax, he can get you in this, like, basically this endless loop of you getting hurt in the face.
Yeah, Baraka's got something very similar to that. I usually main him when I play Mortal Kombat Online, even though he's one of the worst characters on that roster. But I don't give a fuck. I like bum rushing people. If you can get him in a corner with somebody, you can repeat the one where he jabs at you like a bunch of times real quick. You can do that in quick succession, like at least 3 times. And most people's health bars just disappear when they do that. He's really good at rushing people and getting them stuck in a corner and do that. Slice and dice or something similar to that? I don't know. Rip and tear, man. Your guts hanging out. But yeah, I'm just waiting on Injustice. And other than that, I'm just recovering from being sick. I think I might have a sinus infection, and that sucks.
I don't know what it's like to be sick.
Because you're awesome, I know that. I wish I could be as awesome as you. But I can't, so fuck you.
Since this is the first question we've ever had, let's go ahead and segue into the first question that one of our listeners has sent us. I don't know if this should be in the middle of the show or at the end, but it's going in right now. So here it goes.
And, we should probably call it something else other than that, because that's a very long name for this segment.
Yeah.
That's a very long name.
We need to get a guitar riff
work on that
or something
later.
like that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we need some sort of jingle, like, question of the day!
Okay, maybe not that.
No, that was my best Brutal Legend impersonation.
Nice. Anywho, what's the question, Josh?
The question is from Antonio Jones, and his question is, what makes and likewise breaks a game for you? Pretty good question.
That's a pretty good question. What makes it breaks a game? Well, if it's buggy as all hell, that, theoretically breaks a game. But for me, I don't know. I guess it all depends on how repetitive the gameplay can get. A good example, to be perfectly honest, was playing BioShock Infinite the other day. I beat it.
When'd you get it?
Kind of glad I did, though, because I was getting towards the end where I'm like, all right, it's kind of getting boring now. And I never really had that feeling with the original BioShock, and even the second game, even though the second game was pretty much more of the same, besides a little bit of a slight variation with, dual wielding and stuff. But I don't know, like something about it, maybe it's because the guns all kind of felt the same. Like there were a lot of permutations of weapons, and most of them, and each one of them actually had their own variation, like one for the angry white people side, and then there was the other faction, the Vox Populi. They had their own variation of those guns. But they all usually revolved around shooting a lot of bullets. And it didn't really feel like much of a difference between the two. And I kind of appreciated the original BioShock's version of their weapons because, I don't know, like something about that, like each gun had a purpose to it. Like all these guns really felt the same. And since there was only a 2-weapon limit in the game, like you can only hold one weapon and another one, kind of like, I don't know, all fucking first-person shooters now, there was really not much of a point to upgrading them because you barely had enough ammo to hold one of them. So, and you were usually cycling out weapons depending on what the situation was. So, I don't know, it was kind of dumb. That, and the worst part about it was I think the tonics, they all really felt the same as well. Like, most of them if not all of them, were either a type of direct damage / AoE type of damage, area of effect. And there was not much of a difference between them besides like the flashy animation to them or whether or not it stunned someone. Like, at least in the original BioShock, each one of them kind of had a specific purpose to it, whether that it was stunning them or causing, elemental type of damage or just crowd control. I don't know. It all felt really the same, and that was one of the big problems I had with the game. And then the story is a whole different type of topic, but we'll get into that at some point in the future. But I don't know. That's one way that breaks a game for me. It's just a lot of repetition, a lot of nothing really changing as the game progresses.
Yeah, I didn't know you got BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
Okay.
I beat it in like 2 days. Like, it didn't really take me long to beat.
I am still looking forward to that game, but I will say a game, I mean, like you said, obviously if the game is unplayable because of bugs and whatnot, then you can't even play the game because it's broken. But I'm going to have to say that originality breaks a game quicker than anything else for me. If a game is kind of buggy, but it's trying to do something new or innovative, then I have a lot more respect for it. Kind of like Psychonauts. Psychonauts is the controls aren't super tight. There are some bugs in it, but the game is hysterical and it's crazy imaginative. And I can. Could
you say that also that kind of ties into the story as well? Whether or not that is something that is a big deal for you?
Yeah, I would say I would agree. Story is a big deal because it's kind of like you can have a AAA game or even a huge big budget movie, but the story sucks, which makes it a terrible movie. Like, I think that goes hand in hand with games. But I think mediocrity in games is more offensive than mediocrity in movies, I would say. I mean, recently playing Resident Evil 6, I can tell you that the best part about playing Resident Evil 6 was that someone didn't come in and physically rape me. And I think that was the highlight of Resident Evil 6, was that no one came and raped me. But other than that, it was a very generic shooter that was trying to be like Call of Duty and Battlefields or Gears of War, and it didn't do any of them very well. And they just kept piling on weird story elements. But like a game like Catherine, where the story is everything and it's extremely original, I really enjoyed that. And even a game I have called El Shaddai, which makes no sense at all.
That game makes absolutely no fucking sense, right, but it's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous, it looks fantastic, and it plays excellently. So that's what really makes and breaks a game for me, is the story. And not so much in terms of technical detail and whatnot. I mean, even if you were to just base it strictly on a technical level, a game like Amnesia that came out, which is a horror game found on Steam that's on the PC, is a really good
Mac.
game.
Don't forget Mac.
Oh, it is on Mac, yeah. It's a really, really good, freaky, scary game. But when you look at the graphics, honestly, the graphics look like they could have come out in the early 2000s. It's not that graphically good, but it's a crazy immersive story.
But the thing is, it's still aesthetically pleasing enough where it doesn't cause that much of a big deal.
Right, but I mean, even playing the first Half-Life, the difference between Half-Life and Half-Life 2 in terms of graphics is ridiculous. But you can still play the first Half-Life because it's a good game with a really interesting story. And I think that's what... I think mediocrity in gaming is far worse than anything else you can do, which is why a game like Mirror's Edge... Didn't EA do Mirror's Edge?
Yes. That was DICE. That was actually around the time John Riccitiello took over for CEO for EA.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's cool.
And... yeah, that was their big push to do new IPs. That was around the time Dead Space came out as well, like all those like newer games. And unfortunately, Mirror's Edge didn't really make the cut. But yeah, that game was pretty nice looking, and it was very simple in design, but at least the aesthetics of it were good enough where it didn't really matter whether or not it was like quote-unquote bad looking.
No, it looked very good, but the fact that you're playing as a first-person free runner was really fun. I mean, there were occasionally where you were wall jumping and it got kind of nauseating, but the idea behind the game and the way you play the game The story was terrible, but the game.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely dreadful.
The game was.
Don't play that game for the story.
The game was original, so I guess that's what I mean. That's where story and originality differ, because you can have an original game with a crappy story, or you can have a non-original game with an amazing story. But I think that I tend to lean towards originality more than story when it comes to games.
Understandable. I'm going to bring this back to BioShock Infinite for this again, for story-wise. God damn it. Why do I have to keep doing this? Okay. I didn't really like the story. Let me try and explain that. This is... Okay, I spoiled myself, ladies and gentlemen. I spoiled myself the ending of that game.
You soiled yourself?
Damn well there was absolutely no fucking way my expectations would have been met. And I'm pretty sure most people's expectations, there we go, would have been met for that game. And so, you know what? I spoiled myself for it because I needed to know what I was going to get myself into at the very end of it. And you know what? At first, it made no fucking sense. Even after going through it, I wish that they didn't go that route. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, Josh, because you still haven't fucking played it. So you need to fucking play it. But for me, at least, when I finished it, even after knowing what was going on, I honestly feel like movies and animes have done that type of a story, but did it better. But the thing is, though, since I spoiled myself, I purposely looked for those signs of, what that whole thing was going to lead up to. And you know what? It's fucking everywhere in that game. Like, from the very beginning onwards, like, that there's kind of something off about what's going on. And not just because of the setting, but, like, the actual, like, story of, like, what eventually happens. Like, they will kind of allude to that. Even though if you didn't know what was going to happen, you'd have no fucking idea. And, I kind of appreciated that. But at the same time, it's just like, I wanted to know more about what was going on in the city and not like this weird pseudo paradox that's going on. And I'm already saying too much for you, Josh. But like, I felt like the main focus of the story took a weird turn that for most people, if they didn't know what was going to happen, essentially flipped on the last 10, 15 minutes to this weird fucking thing that was going on. You're like, what is going on? And like literally like the last 10, 15 minutes, you're not doing anything. You're just like, it's an interactive cutscene if you want to call it one of those. Like you're walking around with Elizabeth and nothing else happens. And you're kind of they're literally explaining what the fuck this is all about. And I don't know, like, something about it really threw me off. Even after knowing what was going to happen and after then playing through it, I'm just like, it's a mediocre game. I don't know why everyone thinks it's the greatest thing of all time. And but yeah, story, big deal sometimes, depending on if your gameplay is not one of the strong points, then at least the story kind of has to make up for it, for the little bit of the mediocrity that it is. Like, Nier is a great example of that. Have you played Nier?
No. How do you spell it?
Nier. I believe it's only for PlayStation 3.
No, I haven't. But I am looking to get, I think it's called Lucha Melee or something like that, and that game looks... Guacamelee, yes. I'm going to be getting that soon.
Shit, I've lost my track. Okay, hold on.
Nier.
Okay. That is an example of a game that's kind of mediocre in gameplay. But my God, that fucking story is so good. Like, it is a very deep and emotional as all hell story. You're essentially a father trying to find his daughter, last time I checked. I believe that's pretty much it. But it just, there's a lot of heartache in that game, and it totally makes up for the lack of gameplay that there kind of is. Like, it's a little shallow on that front, but man, that story's good.
There was a game that's similar to that where you play as a kid, I think, and you have to like go up different levels and things like that. But it's kind of like him coping with the things that are going on around him. And that was also for the PS3.
Is that Papo EO?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I believe that is the kid and his very alcoholic and abusive stepfather.
I think that may be the game where it's supposed to be
more than likely that does sound like it.
Kind of generic gameplay, but the story is like they said it'll make you cry. It'll make you cry.
speaking of sad as fuck stories, To the Moon. There's no way I'm ever going to play that game. It was made out of the RPG Maker. It's on PC. I think you can get it on Steam. Oh, God. Even just thinking about it just makes me just sad. Like, it's a really fucking sad, emotional story. And look, for people who don't really get, like, all emotional with games, like, you may not cry. But for people who, like, you can really kind of invest in stuff like that, like, more than likely you'll shed a tear or two.
I have to agree. Well, tears are something that I haven't experienced in years and years. But I will.
You don't cry. It's weird.
I know. But I will say that I have to agree with Adam Sessler on this point, and that I don't really consider video games toys. I consider them more as an art form. Because if you think of them strictly as toys, they're really, really expensive toys. I mean, $60 for a new game that came out with a $400 console. I mean, to get the accessories, to have the, a high definition television, they're really expensive to, I think, just be considered toys. And the amount of time and effort that goes into them really show that they're more of an art form than anything else.
They're kind of evolving into an interactive story, which, that sounds kind of scary for some people where it's like, oh, the gameplay doesn't matter. Oh, yeah, gameplay still fucking matters, guys. But, I mean, if a game like Telltale's The Walking Dead can come out and it can be that good, like, I mean, there are places for games like that. There are always now going to be places for games like that where the story is pretty much the forefront of it. I guess you can say Mass Effect tried to do that, but then kind of snubbled at the finish line really hardcore. But, I mean, it's becoming a thing now where, like, story's kind of becoming a much bigger deal. You can say the same thing for BioShock Infinite, but, okay, that's the last time I'm going to fucking say that game. I don't know. Is there anything else that kind of breaks a game for you?
No, not that I can think of. Really, originality is the big one. And like I said, there are obvious things, like, if a game doesn't have multiplayer, that doesn't mean anything to me. If it only has co-op, like I said, none of those are pros or cons for me. It has a lot to do with story and really originality and how original a game is for me to really take time, because games can be long. For me to take Ni no Kuni, for example, is a 40-hour game. For me to take that time and invest that over, basically 2 solid days of playing a game, to take those hours and invest it into something for as long as someone will, really needs to be original and want me to keep playing. Yeah,
I would definitely agree with you on that. Before we move on, one more thing that I just want to bring up that kind of breaks the game for me. A good example of this, Kingdom Hearts. That is an original as fuck game.
Yeah.
But there's an aspect about it that drives me absolutely fucking off the wall. Actually, no, 2 things. Number 1, the camera.
Yeah.
The camera of that game, there's something very off with it. I always feel like the areas are too, like, small, and that makes everything very compact, and so that makes the camera really difficult to work with. It tries to do a decent job, but if you don't have a good camera in a game, you're going to lose me hardcore. The second thing, and I've noticed this because I just fought Maleficent for the first time. I beat her after like 5 or 6 times because that boss fight is just, that goes back to the camera issue where the camera is focused on her head. That's where the camera lock is. But she has an ability during that fight when she's in dragon form where she'll do a 360 spin, and the camera will literally like pan out real like fucking quickly and wig out when she does it because, her head's on the other side of the fucking room now. And so I literally I can't do anything about it. It's just, it's terrible. That and the fire that she does, then you can't see anything, and then it's just a nightmare. But that brings up the second part is you can't skip cutscenes.
Yes, that game has long cutscenes, and boss fights are always right after them. And when you die, you have to sit through it. And when
before them,
before them. And when you hit start to skip it, it pauses the cutscene.
Okay, hold on. It's a back-to-back thing where literally the Maleficent fight and then the Riku fight right after that have these long as fuck cutscenes. And if you die, you have to fucking replay that whole goddamn thing again. And I've literally pressed every single button and combination known to man on the PlayStation 2 controller, and nothing will fucking change it.
No.
And I try every single time.
Yeah.
And I wish, it's at the point where I start to memorize what they're saying, and I lose focus. And then, like, if I have to do it again, I literally drop the controller and I go on my phone and I'm like, wait, what's going on the internet today? And I tune myself out. And I can't do it.
That's a huge annoyance for me, but it won't break a game. But I remember sitting through, especially because Maleficent isn't even the last boss. But when you go against the last boss, I died so many times, and there's like a cutscene in between his forms, and every single time, like I would hit pause to skip it, and it would just pause the cutscene, and I'm like, oh, wait, you tricky person.
Wait. If you die, does that mean you have to start the fight all the way at the first form?
Yeah, there's no checkpoint.
So you mean to tell me you have to watch the cutscene beforehand of the first form, and then the middle cutscene between forms?
Yes.
Okay, by the way, I'm not at that point in the game, but I'm pretty sure I might have to stop playing the fucking game if I have to deal with that bullshit.
You need to play it, because there was one boss like that, and I'm almost certain it was the last one. Where
my God, I really, Josh, I don't want to play. I don't want to do it anymore. It was bad enough with the Maleficent. Actually, no, wait, hold on. No, Maleficent kind of sort of had two forms. You did fight her once in her normal form, but then you kind of stopped, regrouped, and whatnot, and then you can go into the next part. But at least every time you died, it started at that next part. But what you're saying here is, after I have to go through all that, I don't.
I mean, you save it.
Josh,
you save it before the final boss.
Why'd you have to tell me that? This is why we can't have nice things.
I agree with you on the camera aspect, but I consider the camera not functioning more of a technical problem and not really a game-breaking problem. So that goes hand in hand with controls. Like, if the controls were loose,
I mean, it can be to the point where it can be so frustrating that it's counteractive to what you're trying to do to progress the game, that you can probably rage quit once or twice, or in my case, at least 10 times trying to fight Maleficent.
I do agree. I definitely see what you're saying. There was something else that you said that I wanted to bring up. Oh, I don't think I ever locked on to anyone in that game.
How the hell did you manage to do that?
Because I thought you had to hit the button to lock on, and then you could switch targets and things like that. And I just don't think I ever really locked on to anyone.
Oh, I mean, I know that, but like, how? That is so annoying to me. Like, because Sora will. God, I keep wanting to say Sora's name is something different that's a little bit more manly. Because man, everyone in that game looks like a woman, except for Donald and Goofy. But I don't know, like, because he'll automatically go to like the closest person, but like, what if I don't want to go to that dude? I have to lock on to someone else, but then I have to scroll through everyone in the lock process to get to him. Like, how did you do that?
Well, that was the thing. I figured if Sora was locking onto someone, they needed to be dead anyways, so I would just go after them.
I'll try that next time.
I mean, that was just something that I did, because I was, especially when you had to cycle through enemies after locking on, that was annoying, and I didn't even want to deal with that.
All right, let's move on, shall we?
Kickstarter games.
Yes.
Do you has it?
I actually haven't, back to Kickstarter yet, even though all these not great games, great ideas of games are being brought forth. And I wanted to talk to you about what I think the industry is doing today. And this started the other day when I was looking up a little game called Star Citizen. And for those who do not know, I believe right now Star Citizen is the most backed game on Kickstarter. And even past that point, after the Kickstarter ended, they now have over $7.5 million backed into that game. And for those who don't know, Star Citizen is a kind of sandbox, freeform space simulator type of game where, kind of like EVE Online, except it's not an MMO. It's kind of sort of pseudo if you wanted it to be. There will be possible servers where you can play with a bunch of people, but it's essentially you do what you want at a game.
It was made by the guy who did Wing Commander. I think it has 8 million when I checked yesterday.
Oh, I believe it.
If you haven't gone to Star Citizen, watch the Kickstarter video for it, because it looks amazing. It looks like a really, really cool game.
I like to
But-
think of it that's the future. That right there, that video game is like the future of what games can be and what games should be. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about, though. I wanted to talk about Kickstarter itself and backing projects and how that's become a huge thing ever since Double Fine did their game, which, made $3.3 million in 30 days. And now a lot of people seem to be going towards that. And to me, I don't think of it as that's going to be like the future. That's what games are going to do nowadays. I mean, there are probably always going to be publishers. I mean, that's always going to be a thing. But to me, all that seems like it's a cry for help, a cry for, hey, I'm tired of fucking Call of Duty. I'm fucking tired of Halo. I'm fucking tired of all these games that look the same. We need something different. And I am willing to invest money into a game that might not even fucking come out, that might not even meet my expectations of what they're trying to do. But damn it, it's at least something.
I agree. But my thing with Kickstarter and games is that a lot of times it's just one person, and I guess that's the appeal of Kickstarter is that, you can have, or even just video games in general, you can have one person make an entire game, which is an extremely incredible feat, but one person can do that. And I think that Steam is kind of already on. It's kind of already doing something like that with Greenlight, where you vote on ideas that you really like, and then those can make it to Steam. Kickstarter's not a fad by any means. It's definitely going to stay around for a long time, and it's made crazy amounts of things possible. But to get to the point where most things get heavily funded, they're already very long in development, and they've already had some sort of financial backing up to that point, and they've made prototypes or demos or something hugely significant, and then they get Kickstarter to really give them a huge boost financially towards the end. And I think just for the very common person to get to that point where somebody would actually back a game because they wouldn't back an idea is so far out there that the regular person couldn't do it. Someone who's already had money or had some sort of backing prior could actually do it. Yeah. And that's why I don't necessarily think that it's going to be the way that games are determined. But, Star Citizen looks fantastic. And when the guy was talking about how he's building it basically so it will always be expandable, and how you can have, jump something?
Wormholes or stuff like that?
Named after you because you're the first person to discover it. Like really, really cool things and really neat ideas that probably wouldn't have flown with larger publishing companies. But for someone like him, who was a developer for Wing Commander 3 and several other games, he definitely either had a team or he had some sort of backing prior to get the game to where it is now. And Kickstarter's just kind of helping him finish it, whereas I don't think most people will get to that point ever.
The thing is, like, it's now a rule for Kickstarter where you actually have to have some sort of prototype to be eligible to be on Kickstarter now. Like before, when that became an actual thing with Double Fine's adventure game, which it's got a name for it, I don't remember off the top of my head. But literally, like, you can just pitch an idea, and it's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. But for, unfortunately, a lot of people, like, for many, that could be, hell, hey, it's a great way to get money and then fucking run with it. Because, I mean, once the money is approved, they can do whatever the hell they want with it. But the thing is, you were saying how it's like one-man teams. It's at the point now where it's not necessarily just one-man teams. There are actually larger, like, development groups that are actually like getting in on this, like not just Double Fine, but actual like major groups. I can't remember the name of it. It's essentially a spiritual successor to Dark Age of Camelot. And if you don't know what that is, for anyone out there, it's a former MMO that by the same guys who did Warhammer Age of Reckoning. That didn't really sell well. But Dark Age of Camelot was essentially a realm versus realm online game where you essentially fought over territory with hundreds of other people. And you claimed that land and it became yours, and you can do whatever you want with it and create new buildings to defend. It's a great idea. And now one of the heads of that original company and his development team is starting an MMO in the same vein as it. And the best part about it is, like, they're so serious about it with their Kickstarter that that guy himself has already dropped $2 million of his own money into it. Like, and they're already like going at it, making this game. And last time I checked, it's been doing pretty well in the Kickstarter. It's probably going to pass with flying colors, and then some. But like, it's definitely at the point now where it's not just for the one-man teams. It's definitely for the major companies that have gone to publishers and said, "Hey, we want to make this game," and the publishers have said, "Nah, sorry, this doesn't seem like a great investment." They can now essentially say, "Okay, we don't really need you anymore. We can actually take what we've made so far that we've pitched, and we can pitch it to the people who actually want to play this game." And I think that's something that will definitely be around, well, forever.
You make a really good point about it being with actual developing companies, and you're right. I mean, Double Fine isn't just Tim Schafer; it's an entire team. But it's kind of goes back to what I was saying before. The guy had $2 million to invest himself. I mean, who has that to just invest into a video game? I mean, I don't. But he was kind of clearly, he had a team, he had some sort of funding, and he was able to go and do this. And I think it's going to get to the point where, like you said, they'll go to publishers, and the publishers will turn them down, and they'll say, "We'll just go to Kickstarter," and the publishers will be like, wait a second. Publishers make absolutely nothing from game companies going through Kickstarter, and I think that they're quickly going to change their ways in some form or another to try and pull back some of those developers and missed opportunities on games.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that goes back to my first idea of no one wants Bro Shooter 14 anymore. Like, we're tired of that. And publishers have kind of realized from all these Kickstarters that are becoming successful with these great ideas that maybe they need to really rethink about what kind of games that they're bringing out to everybody. Like, they're spending how much money now on Ubisoft, spending God knows how much on the new Assassin's Creed, which
oh god,
I'm done with that game. I'm done with that series in general. I didn't even buy the third one because that looked like kind of crappy. It looked like it was a rush game.
I definitely think it's changed the way that publishers are going to start looking at games that are pitched to them and the way game funding kind of goes. And, you know, it's nice. It's really nice that these niche games, which actually tend to sell more, are doing a lot better than these very broad, hit every single demographic game.
One thing I guess we can close off is publishers spend God knows how much money on making games. I mean, I keep hearing the rumor that BioShock Infinite had like $200 million invested into that damn thing. A lot of it went into marketing and advertising and all that crap. With these Kickstarters, it's only a couple $100,000 usually, half the time. It's very rare that they require in the millions. And they're making these great games, and some of them now are, you know, they're profiting hardcore with it. Like FTL was a great example of a game that needed that final push. Like they were getting close to it, but then they said, "Hey, we need a little bit extra money. Can you help us fund it?" And they got it funded on Kickstarter with flying colors, and then they sold that game, and it sold tons, and it's such a fun game. And it just seems like you don't need that much money, guys. All you publishers out there, it's like they don't understand how to sell a game anymore. It's like they need all this money to just throw at developers and be like, spend like a bunch of years making this flashy as all hell game, and they don't know what to do with it with all that money. And I guess one thing I want to really close on is The Witcher 2, one of my favorite fucking games of all time. Made by a bunch of fucking Russians in Eastern Europe in a windmill with like 1980s era Soviet technology, run on nothing but vodka and, you know, the hopes and dreams that they had. Had a budget of maybe $8 million, $9 million. That was it. That's all it took for that game. And that game was amazing. And it sold millions. It was just such great numbers, and they don't need a big company, a big publisher to make their third game, which I'm so fucking excited for. And I don't know. I just want to say, publishers out there who may or may not be listening to this podcast, just have a good idea, have a great idea, and just let the developers do their thing. Don't worry about it. They know what they're doing.
All right, let's sign off.
All right, signing off. We love you all. Please watch our show. Please like our Facebook page at facebook.com/randomrespawn and check us out every week. So with that, I am Marshall Behringer.
I'm Josh Chagani.
And we are signing off. Have a great night and take care.